Hi guys, Sean here from digiDirect. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Nikon Z6. Now this just came out last week and it is the more affordable of Nikon's two new full-frame mirrorless options. Now I did already do a hands-on first look video on the Z6 and the Z7 when they were first announced back in late August, but at that time I only had my hands on the camera for a short period of time and I also wasn't allowed to show any sample footage from them because they were pre-production models. Now that I've had the camera for a bit longer and I can show you some samples, I thought I'd revisit it now. And let's start by taking a look at the body. So the Z6 is a quite solidly built camera, and I'll actually note that it's almost identical to the Z7. Really the only difference is the little badge in the bottom right corner there. It has a very high quality feel. The grip and the texture in particular are very nice. The button positioning is quite ergonomic. And being a mirrorless camera, it is a bit smaller than its DSLR cousins. Not as small as the smallest mirrorless on the market, but it is more compact than a DSLR. Notably, it has an AF joystick that is quite nice to use, a tilting LCD touchscreen, mic and headphone jacks, a top LCD screen, and it is a fully weather-sealed camera. It also has an absolutely fantastic 3.6 million dot viewfinder. That's one of the very best on the market here, and it's really a pleasure to shoot with. Very, very clear. The menus and the controls are good, and some of the lenses, notably the 24-70 f4, have an extra control ring on here, which can be customized, which is nice, so it's very easy to control and navigate. The biggest downside here by far, and I can just hear the anger of the internet as I say this, is that it only has a single card slot. This is going to be the biggest hurdle that pros are going to have to get over in order to use this camera, not having the redundancy of dual card slots. Note it is also an XQD card, not an SD card. The other big thing here is the new lens mount. This has the new Z mount, which is different than the F mount that's been on Nikon cameras for decades. This mount has a wider diameter, which Nikon says will provide less light fall off in the corners. Of course, it also means new lenses. So currently there are three Nikon Z lenses out, the 24-70 f4, 35 1.8, and 50 1.8. And one of the points of this video is to showcase what they can do, which I'll do via the sample photos. They're pretty light lenses. The 24-70 in particular is fairly compact considering its zoom range. Nikon has a whole roadmap of future Z lenses to come, including a 58mm 0.95 due in 2019. There is also an adapter though that will allow you to mount traditional F-mount lenses on here with full autofocus capability for most lenses. I've tested the adapter. It does quite a good job, so you can be confident if you have a bunch of existing F-mount lenses, you'll be able to put them on here and that's not too much of an issue. So the Z6 is a full-frame mirrorless camera, and inside of it is a 24-megapixel full-frame sensor. Now that's one of the key differences between the Z6 and the Z7. The Z7 has a 45 megapixel sensor inside of it. So the relationship between the two is kind of like the Sony a7 III and the a7R III. Now, for those who want the most resolution, maybe landscape shooters and so on, the Z7 is going to be the way to go. But for most people, the 24 megapixels on the Z6 should be absolutely fine. That's a totally standard acceptable megapixel count. So I think that's going to apply to a broader swath of the population. And an added benefit of that on the Z6 is that the lower pixel density means that it actually has slightly better low light performance than the Z7. The Z6 is about one stop better in low light than the Z7 is, again mirroring the relationship between the Nikon D750 and the D850. Another big feature on the Z6 is the 5 stops of in-body image stabilization. This is particularly notable when we consider that one of its biggest competitors, the Canon EOS R, has no IBIS at all. And I'm happy to report that it's a very solid system in here. It's very effective. Here I am shooting at 70 millimeters handheld, and it's very solid. Of course, this is not going to only be useful for video, it's also going to let you shoot handheld photos with a low shutter speed, which is helpful for low light situations. And the fact that it's in body, of course, means that it's going to apply to any lens that you put on here, even adapted lenses. I think I still hold Olympus up as the gold standard for in-body image stabilization, but this is very high up there. I would say that it's superior to Panasonic's system and even, dare I say it, Sony's system. So a very good showing on the IBIS on the Z6. Now, autofocus on the Z6 is pretty snappy. It has a hybrid contrast and phase detection AF system with 273 autofocus points. The Z7 has 493 autofocus points, but they both cover 90% of the frame, so the AF points on the Z6 are larger than on the Z7, but again, covering pretty much the whole frame. And it does quite a good job. It's no slouch, it's pretty fast, it's also accurate up to -4 EV, and the tracking does a pretty good job. Also, if you're using the adapter with an F-mount lens, you don't see a lot of quality loss in the AF system as well. It still maintains a very good hit rate. Now, this is not the 3D tracking system from the D850, so this is not the absolute top tier AF system on the market, but I think it does a pretty good job. It can also shoot at a fairly fast 12 frames per second, which is notably a little bit faster than the Z7, which is 9 frames per second. Now let's touch on video on the Z6, which surprisingly is quite a strength. So the camera can shoot 4K at up to 30 frames per second with no crop, unlike the Canon EOS R or 5D Mark IV, which has that big 1.7 times crop, so that's a pretty big deal. Although you can choose to shoot in APS-C mode if you want. You can shoot 1080 at up to 120 frames per second, and you can choose to overcrank that in camera if you want. It also has 4K time-lapse internally, focus peaking, time code, zebra stripes, and headphone and mic jacks as well. Additionally, you can take 10-bit outputs from the HDMI, so if you're using an Atomos recorder or something similar, when you record that way, you also do gain access to their N-Log flat picture profile. And I'll also add that the in-body image stabilization is a real boon for video work as well. It just makes run and gun shooting that much easier and simpler. So really nice features and improvements on the Z6. I'm really happy to see that because Nikon has not very traditionally been known as a strong video shooter, but they did a really good job on the Z6 in addressing video. Overall, I'm quite impressed with the Z6. It's a well-built camera, it has good ergonomics, has a nice resolution full-frame sensor, a very well-performing in-body image stabilization system, solid autofocus performance, and it has very impressive video features. I didn't really even touch on image quality, but hopefully you've been able to judge that from the sample photos and so on. I think it's very high image quality. The lenses do a good job, and having that adapter also gives you a fair amount of flexibility if you have existing Nikon lenses. I'm also looking forward to the new lenses that they're going to be coming out with soon. Definitely the biggest downfall of this camera is the single card slot in it, but if you can get over that, I think it's a very well-performing camera. Also, the fact that this is about $2,000 less than the Z7, I think means that this is going to be definitely the more popular of the two cameras. Now, it is out now. You can order it on our website at www.digidirect.com.au, or if you want to give the camera a play first, come into one of our stores, you can test it out. We've got stores in the Sydney CBD, Bondi Junction, Miranda, the Brisbane and Melbourne CBD, and Cannington, Western Australia, which is just outside of the Perth CBD. Thanks, guys. Take care.